Good morning, everyone. Welcome to STEM Inspiration Week. I'm Helen Spence from STEMPOINT East. We've got you all on mute and your cameras are all switched off, and please keep it that way. It's so that we don't get background noise. And just to let you know, we are recording this session, and we'll have the recording available for you to see after the event. We've got a chat function, and if you're able to use that, that's fantastic. Do ask questions during Catherine's talk. Please, if you're a teacher, can you enter your name of your school and how many students you've got with you on this call, because that's really useful information for us, and include the year group in that as well. It helps us check that this chat function is working as well. So I'd like to say a big welcome and thank you to Catherine Priestley from ASTRAZENCA, who is presenting our first talk of the week. Catherine is Head of Biopharmaceuticals at the Research and Development and Communications Department within ASTRAZENCA. So I'm going to hand over to Catherine now. Welcome, Catherine.
Thanks so much, Helen, and good morning, everyone. And I'm absolutely thrilled to be kicking off your week, inspiring different career paths into STEM as you progress through your education journey. And I will try and just share my screen with you now so we can go through that. Go into presentation mode. And as Helen said, it'd be great if this is an interactive session. I'd love to see questions coming in. We do actually kick off the start of this session with a question to all of you. So perhaps it's a way for you to also get used to the chat function here. And maybe where we start is, what do you know today about what is a medicine? Why do we need medicines? And how is a medicine made? If you could enter this within the chat function, Helen, maybe you can help me here a little bit as things come in. You know, this could be what you're used to seeing in a pharmacy. So it's medicine that you can take orally, either as a liquid or as a tablet. It might be that you can buy that medicine within the pharmacy setting, or that you have to go to your doctor, or actually within a hospital setting. Why do we need medicines? There's a multiple range of different diseases now that we aim to treat either on a daily basis. If you or your friends have got asthma, where we've got problems with the heart or any one of our organs. Or how is a medicine made? And this might be where it's a very complicated area, and this is what we're going to go through today. So Helen, anything that's kind of coming through on the chat at the minute?
Yeah, we've got the teachers entering their school names at the moment. So I've asked them to enter any of the answers that students have given, but we haven't got any so far.
Okay, no worries. Well, keep that thought in mind, and maybe I'll come back to these questions right at the end, because hopefully it might be a little bit clearer. So first of all, I want to kick off with what your future might look like in healthcare, because today when we think about medicines, it might be as I've just described it in those different settings, and it's a physical thing that you're actually taking. Well, actually in the future, it might look very different. I'm just going to play this short film to see what that future of healthcare might look like for you.
Hey, Smartest, I have not been feeling well.
Yes, I noticed that. You have not been sleeping well, and your heart rate has been erratic. I see that Dr. Smith is free on Tuesday. Do you want me to arrange a video call?
Yes, that would be great. Is my regular doctor not free?
She is, but your data suggests that Dr. Smith may be more suited for this consultation.
Okay, please book the appointment.
John, your blood pressure has not responded sufficiently to bring it into the normal range. Dr. Smith has authorized me to prescribe you with new heart medicine. To watch a video about taking this medicine, say video. To have it delivered to your home, say deliver. To set up a video appointment with Dr. Smith, say appointment.
Deliver.
There is a new study taking place for a heart medication in development, and you meet the patient enrollment criteria. I have sent you more details by email for you to consider. I see you have not yet taken your blood pressure medicine. Is there a problem, John?
I forgot. I'm taking it now.
I think you can see that because of the evolution of the smartphone, the wealth of data that we can now collate and interpret using artificial intelligence to understand new drivers of disease, understanding new ways that we can interact with the patient. It's really transforming healthcare, and this is your future. And what this means to us within the pharmaceutical industry is it then requires a full range of skill sets. And this is one thing that, you know, when we think about the pharmaceutical industry, we think about the standard scientists, your chemists, your biologists, your physicists, your physicians. But actually, there's such a wealth of expertise that need to come together, even from finance, from HR, from sales and marketing. We all need to come together to make the development and discovery of medicines all the way from that initial concept to the delivery of those medicines to patients. And what is happening at the moment is this evolution of digital data science, this use of IT technologies is really transforming the type of skill sets that we even want to introduce into healthcare. So as they leave school, universities, whichever path is taken, actually data science and coming into the pharmaceutical industry is one that is attractive and not just going into your Microsoft or your Google, etc. So there's much broader range of skill sets that actually can work within the pharmaceutical setting and how you translate turning that science into medicine. So perhaps I can share with you what my background's been like in this career path that I've taken. So actually I was interested in science and science subjects back at school. I wanted to learn more about medicines. So actually I got a holiday job within a pharmacy setting. I worked within the dispensary, within the pharmacy, and actually took some qualifications whilst I was still at school. So I could help the pharmacist to dispense the medicines, make up the ointments, the lotions, the potions, etc., and allow that interaction with the public as they were, describing what their problems were. From there, that actually allowed me to work out what I wanted to do for my degree. And whilst I really enjoyed working in the pharmacy, I also saw that it was a balance of business. And it was a balance between actually having sort of the dispensary side, but also as a shop that sold healthcare goods. And that wasn't enough for me. So I decided to carry on and be more research-based, looking into medical science, which is where I went on to university and did some different work experiences along the way. One of the things when you're thinking about your whole career path, it's where you can get those experience moments. I think it's really important as when we're recruiting individuals, that they've gone out and looked at more of a portfolio, and it's helped guide them on their journey as you're thinking through what you might want to do. And each experience that you're getting is actually forming thought of where that might go. What I can tell you is none of this path was worked out at the beginning. I knew there were certain essence of what I wanted out of my career, but I didn't know where it was going to go. And as I talk through, you'll see how those paths and opportunities then that you're faced with allow you to make those decisions. What I would also say is nothing is delivered to you, nothing is prescriptive. You've got to be the one that goes out and does the research, that goes out to find what is possible. During my degree at the University of Birmingham, the whole idea of doing placements out in industry was a whole new concept. In fact, it wasn't really supported by the course I was doing, but I could see at other universities that was happening, and some of my friends at other universities were taking that opportunity. So I went to my course tutor, and together we worked out how to make applications across 2 different pharmaceutical industries. SmithKline Beecham, they're now known as GlaxoSmithKline today, took me on for the year. What that gave me was the practical experience, the actual hands-on, the can-do within the laboratory setting, and all of those experiences along the way actually helped form the theory that you're learning through your degree, apprenticeship, etc., but gave you the hands-on. And I think now with different types of apprentice schemes, that's exactly what they're trying to do, is to give you the hands-on work experience of what it's like when you're learning about chemistry at school, mass spectrometry, whatever technology, and how it applies in the real world setting. I then decided I wanted to continue being a research scientist. I saw that by being in industry, actually, it did help at that time to have a higher level degree. And so took my career onwards and actually got to work on some really exciting new technologies. It was before, you might have seen last week, the Nobel Prize being given to the new CRISPR technology. This is a gene editing technology that is available now that certainly wasn't available back then, where you can literally edit out the genome with a really precise precision and allow you to learn and understand the genome so much better, the DNA within your cells, the code that it has within your cells to be the person that you are, or that it causes potentially future disease setting. So I got to do that, and very much the world of science is a small world, and there's lots of connections across the industry. So from there, I actually managed to join ASTRAZENCA. And I first joined ASTRAZENCA as a toxicologist. So that is someone who is a team that is responsible for making sure that any medicines or investigatory medicines at this stage that go into clinical trials and into man are considered safe enough to do so. So there's lots of different experiments that we run. And my group was responsible for coming up with new technologies. So they were called organ chip technologies, where you're taking and not necessarily doing animal experiments, you're taking the cells of the animal from the heart, the lung, the pancreas, and putting it into a really little chip. It's only about the size of a sort of large stamp. And by putting those cells into that situation, you can start to see how they interact with each other when you put investigatory medicines onto that. So the ones that you're sort of thinking are going to be the best as you transition through that entire research space. But when I was saying about your path offers very different opportunities, I responded to a advert that actually our new head of R&D at the time posted to go into science communications. Now, I'd always been really interested in the way that science translated, writing about science, talking to different individuals, talking to family members, how you educate about science. And I was absolutely thrilled when actually someone decided to take me on in that career direction, because a lot of the time you think of pockets of your career. Well, I can't necessarily do that because I haven't got exactly the right skill sets. And it's interesting looking at this, even as the gender balance. Girls tend to look at a list and go, oh, well, I'm not so sure I can do that, that, and that. Whereas boys actually look at a list and go, well, I can do most of it, so I'll go for it. And actually, it's really interesting looking at this dynamic and actually having that enthusiasm and ability just to go, actually, I could probably do this with a little bit of support and help. And that's the sort of the ambition that it's great to see coming through when you're actually recruiting different individuals. So for the last 11 years, I've taken a completely different path. Yes, it's still in science. Yes, it's still understanding the discovery of how that science translates into medicine. But it's my responsibility, along with my team, to do that. And that's what's so amazing to see as new things come through, how we translate that science, that understanding into audiences that can understand it. So where we have got to within ASTRAZENCA is a huge, enormous organisation. Our research and development spans 40 countries. It's got over 10,500 individuals across the globe. Now that might seem enormous and quite vast and daunting. We take something that is all the way from that disease understanding all the way through from experiments in the laboratory, experiments and then clinical trials within the human setting, all the way through to hopefully approval and launch. We've set up ourselves in a very different way in the last 18 months. So we have two different types of organisations. One called Oncology Research and Development, that's specifically focused on discovering and developing cancer medicines that go across all the different range of organ types, and then one called biopharmaceuticals. And in this is the area that my team support. We cover all forms of different types of disease, from those that affect the heart, that affect the kidney, the lung, the brain, and then more systems like your immune system, how you fight off infections, how you fight off viruses, coronavirus as such as well. And our job then is to make sure that those teams can transition all the way through, making decisions along the way. One of the things that's really important to understand about our industry is how you guide that path of drug discovery and development. And we introduced what we call a 5R framework to really help guide that decision making through different stages of research, drug discovery and development. So the first one that's really important is defining the right target. Now, you all know you've started to study all about your DNA that's within cells and how that DNA translates into a protein. And we have thousands of proteins within our bodies that are responsible for different actions, for doing different things. They might be proteins that guide the cell to do something, to grow, to divide. They might guide a nervous impulse to your brain, so your hand raises. All different proteins do different things. There are some proteins within our bodies that actually change the course of a disease occurring. And it's those targets, those absolute first initial changes that we want to find within our bodies and be able to alter, so they don't go on to cause disease within the human setting. So identifying that right target is the absolute critical part of what we do. Then when you carry on, does it actually does your molecule that you're then your new drug of interest that you're trying to discover, does it go and affect the right tissue in the body? Does it go to the right place? If it's for a headache, you want to make sure that it can get to the brain so that it can change that inflammation that's happening, change that pain. Or if it's to the kidney, you want it to get to the kidney. I've talked about the right safety because of my background. We need to absolutely ensure that any medicine that is developed is with minimal side effects. And we call this our risk-benefit analysis. So it might be more acceptable in a very severe disease setting that some other side effects are accepted. That might be like in cancer medicines, chemotherapy, because we know that the medicines are going to do the best job that they can to shrink the tumour. We also then, side effects that go with that are more accepted than if you have a cold or a headache and you're taking paracetamol. So very much that is absolutely the risk benefit, but the safety is absolutely critical. And that might mean changing the chemistry of the molecule, and that's where we need our chemists to do their job and optimize that. And then finally, going into the right patient. We know today that, as we can all see, we all look very different. We all act very different. Even the genetics from our parents mean that we look and act differently again. Defining that right patient, so all diseases are slightly different and everybody responds slightly differently to different medicines. So we need to select those right patients that are going to benefit from that medicine. And then finally, whilst it's not our job within the science setting, the right commercial means that are we defining the right balance of healthcare in the setting that already exists that's going to mean that that medicine is going to be better than what's already out there. So with that, what we need to make sure that we do is focus on quality, not quantity. And what I mean by this is about 10 years, 15 years ago even now, our industry thought that if you put in enough molecules, enough chemistry types at the beginning of that discovery, you would end up with a medicine by serendipity, just by numbers. If we put millions in against a particular drug target, we're bound to get the one that's going to make the medicine. It's not the case. In fact, actually, as an industry, moving a molecule, a chemistry molecule, all the way from discovery through to approval, 80% of those fail. Now that's a huge amount of failure that goes along the way to get one medicine at the end of the day. But that's why we need to focus on the quality of the science and not the quantity. So with the evolution of data science, artificial intelligence, new models like we've now got heart in jars within the laboratory setting. We've got different types of lung models where you put all the different types of cells within your lung into a Petri dish and they can interact. Well, that interaction is exactly what's happening within your body setting. So within a Petri dish, within the laboratory, you can get to see exactly what's happening and guide that molecule with better precision and better quality all the way through that continuum. Now, as a scientist, one of the biggest skill sets you need is resilience, because you can imagine that going through all of that funnel, whittling down from millions and millions all the way to that one medicine, you are going to see a lot of failure along the way, but that's science. And actually, when you get that breakthrough, when you get that moment of, like Emmanuel Charpentier who got the Nobel Prize for gene editing, when they get that moment, it's the most elated response that you can all be joined in of how you've advanced that molecule through to hopefully then being a medicine. But we know that with science, we need to continue to evolve it, to continue to get better, to continue to make better medicines for patients that have got them better outcomes. And I think one of the key parts to this is then how we enhance that understanding of disease, how we really get to the root cause of what's causing that disease. Because quite honestly, they are so complex. There's so many interchangeable mechanisms that are happening, different environmental factors as well as genetic factors. Then whenever we uncover that new target, that new target that we want to design a medicine for, what does that next generation of therapeutic look like? We talked about pills and injections, but the future of therapeutics could well be a digital one, an app on your phone that's going to change the course of what your daily routine might be, evoking better healthcare, or it might be that you need both the digital and the medicine to go with it. And how can we then better that clinical success to ensure new models, new heart in jars, new organ chip technologies, etc., can really better predict that clinical success? And this comes down to where your future is, because quite honestly, we don't know anything really about our genomes. We think we do, but only 60% so far has been linked to the disease setting. And that's purely because research has happened in those spaces, and only 10% of that has actually been chemically linked or modified. So that is 40% of biologically linked to disease that we've not yet explored. But equally, there's 40% of our genome that we call the dark genome, the non-coding areas, that actually is where the opportunity is to explore. And that's where we're going with artificial intelligence today, to really mine that data. And this is why data science is so exciting in this space at the moment. And whilst I was talking to you at the beginning about what does a medicine look like, well, this is just some small selection of what medicines within the injection, within the pill setting actually looks like. You're probably familiar within your chemistry classes with the small molecules, those that have got your benzene rings, it's got your carbons, your oxygen, your nitrogens, but there's so many, many, many more, either an evolution of that chemistry or actually going into protein science or what we're calling nucleotide-based science, which is looking at how you can actually give medicine as the code, as DNA or messenger RNA to really change that. And then with the help of artificial intelligence, we're trying to create the Google map of disease. So you think about the Google Maps that you go and look it down into your house all the way from space. That's exactly what we're trying to do now with imaging, all the way into our cells, how they work within our bodies. And this is giving us a lot better understanding, more data, and therefore that's why artificial intelligence is needed to try and help us and our scientists interpret that information. We started with the film, and this is where different app technologies are coming in. Compliance actually is a biggest part of why patients don't necessarily always improve with their disease setting, remembering to take that medicine, remembering to see whether they're on the right dose level, going back to their physicians. And equally, clinical trials. So this study, one of the studies we've got on at the moment, is actually for children in asthma. And normally those children with severe asthma would have to go into a hospital setting. But because of digital technology, they can stay at school We're collecting data from them all the time as they're on that clinical trial setting. So again, digital data technology. And I think one of the pieces that's really important as you work together as a team, science is all about teamwork, and you've got to be used to working as a team. You've just seen all the different types of expertise that we need around this to come together to make that medicine. Now, one of the pieces that we've been working on as we've launched this new R&D organisation is how we tell a story. So I'm just going to play this very short film to show you how.
Inspiring people with curious minds, free to think, free to fail, to ask the right questions and dig deep into the biology of complex disease. Scientific behavior without fear or favor. This is what we're made of. Harnessing data and technology to accelerate science beyond the human, across every discipline, every discovery and development, putting on speed to help us answer needs that have never been answered before. This is what we're made of. Working seamlessly and inclusively in collaboration, because we can't know it all, to create the next generation of therapeutics, keeping our doors open wide, bringing the best talent on side, diverse in people and skills, making every voice heard, never being deterred, fast forwarding the future. This is what we're made of. Always learning from patients and the experience of people we meet who live with diseases our medicines treat, informing our science, our understanding, our aim getting surer, our knowledge expanding, never stopping, never standing still, making sure that science born in the lab can perform in their world and can be life transforming. By putting the things that we're made of together, we question, challenge, search and deliver. ASTRAZENCA R&D, helping unlock the power of what science can do.
So what I hope that also shares with you is it's very much about not just what we do as scientists, but how we do. How we work together, how we support the right skill set development. So those learning experience that you take and you study, it's not just what you're doing, but showing how you go about it, how you've worked as a team. That is so important as you think about collecting those experiences. So what I would say as we leave and open up for your questions are a couple of pieces. So think about the types of things that you just enjoy and where you might get that more experience from. Having that defined path is so daunting, and I wouldn't even try. We all know we're going to be working for a long time, so get the experiences. Your job is all about making sure that you enjoy it as much as it's advancing who you are and what you do. So try and get opportunities. Brilliant if you can do that in the laboratory setting. Consider different techniques you'll learn for that broader approach. So as you're going into different laboratory settings or trying to get experience like I did within a pharmacy setting, you're adding each time to the types of techniques that you are experiencing. And then one of the things I would actually point out is if you go on to work with a scientific group and carry on to different higher education, really research that group. How well known are they? How well published are they? All the different scientific journals that they publish in, all the different types of grants, the type of work. You're going to be doing that research for a day in, day out for quite a while. You've got to love the area and the exploration that you're going into. And where to find out more? I would say at this stage, New Scientist is a really great way to get that breadth of science of what's possible in a really digestible way. You can learn all the way from space science to crop science to medicine development. It really gives you a sense of what's possible from learning about chemistry, biology and maths at school. Equally, if you're interested in pharmaceutical careers, the Association for British Pharmaceutical Industry, their school's website is actually really good at showing the different career paths and different types of roles that are available and how complicated it can become. But if you're interested in chemistry, what types of chemistry careers you could take. Same then, obviously, Helen and the team and the STEM org website is really great, and specifically the Biology Society of Biology has also got lots of information there. So with that, I think we'll open up for questions and discussions, and I'll stop sharing my screen so I can also see everyone.
Catherine, I'm not sure whether Helen's still here, so I just want to say thank you for that really interesting talk. It gave such a good overview of how to get into the industry and your journey and what things are happening within the pharmaceutical industry all the time and where it's going. So it was a really great insight and a really great start to STEM Inspiration Week. So thank you so much. There have been a few questions on the chat, so I've just copied them across to put to you. So firstly, someone has asked, what would you say, so big question, what would you say has been the highlight of your career so far?
Wow. I think I would say there's lots of different moments that you can take. And this is what I was meaning about experiences, different moments where I can remember during my own PhD, having to sleep. A few of us, we were doing a time course experiment. We had to get sleeping bags in the lab. Well, not actually in the lab setting, but we had to nearly camp out, be able to get the time. So again, it's sort of those moments of camaraderie between teamwork, all working together to try and get the data that you want. Absolutely. When you get those moments that an experiment has worked is absolutely great, because you know the determination that's gone on behind it. But I think it is building up that resilience, I would say, is really key to then being able to take a balanced view about what you're doing and how you approach science. So yeah, different moments, I would say, throughout.
You've obviously had such a varied career as well, so it's hard, I imagine it's really hard to pick. So we've had another question. What advice would you give students who are unsure about what route to take into science? I mean, you mentioned it a bit at the end.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I would say is there's loads of different types of routes into science, much more than there was. When I had the experience, it was very much, you carried on. I did obviously GCSE A levels onto PhD, degree PhD, because that was the flow. What I would say now is the apprenticeship schemes are really great. They give you the hands-on experience. And what we've even had with our apprenticeships, they've gone on actually through the whole path of that, but they've started coming into the work environment first and then gone on and done their degree and gone on to do their PhD all the way through that journey while still working. So you can do most of this part-time as well. So you can do PhDs part-time, degrees part-time, lots of different paths. Now, in terms of which path to take, try and look at what types of science, and this is why I think reading New Scientist can help sometimes, because if you're not quite sure, when you're reading different areas of science through, What's the one that sparks, that you always go to, that you read the article first about? Is it the chemistry articles? Is it the biology articles? Is it space? Is it crop science? Whatever it is, that's kind of telling you something. The other thing I would say is with science, it's so translatable. So you might go down one path, but then end up doing a very different path for your degree. So you could end up going down biology, more biology route, then going into biochemistry, which is sort of where molecules meet chemistry, and then end up doing a chemistry degree. Don't get too worried, I think, of defining that. What I would say is go with what excites you, because you'll learn better and usually see a better outcome.
That's fantastic advice. Thank you. I think you've answered this already. So you talked about a lot about new scientists and how that's a really good gateway into kind of finding out more about research. Is there anything else that you would recommend that teachers could kind of suggest to students to read that's obviously outside of the curriculum, or any journals that are kind of more accessible for GCSE level students?
Yeah, let's think about this. So I would see more the practical application actually of where, and actually this is where Lisa, who supports me in all of our STEM development, it's the practical application. It's finding out when you're learning about mass spectrometry, well, really, do they use that and in the live setting? Well, yes, we do. Robotics. I can see more and more that no matter which science career you will go in, some form of data exploration, analytics will be required. And I think there'll be a lot more hybrid options for courses to come in the future that will have add-ons to data science. Because I absolutely see that's the path of where things are going to go.
Great. So I'm just going down the next question. This is quite similar to the one you answered before. What makes you feel most proud about what you do?
Oh, that's easy today. So as I say, our organisation's 10,500 individuals across 40 countries. My most excitement comes when we are able to take a very complicated science journal publication and turn that into accessible science that everyone can understand. And when we do that, and when we publish those articles on our ASTRAZENCA.com spaces and through social media, how that broader understanding of the science becomes, I think that's absolutely where it's great to see their science becoming a bit more reality and more purposeful.
That's the perfect answer for us. But it's just so inspirational to hear such experienced researchers be able to talk about their research and the science they're doing, so that people can understand how that could be you in your career or in a few years, or how you can get into it. So thank you so much.
Science is also filled with jargon, let's face it. There's the language that you pick up at school, and the different types of ways that you even how you name it, a molecule, a chemistry molecule is complicated. Then you start to go up another layer, and then you start reading the titles of publications from scientists. Most of the time it is a different language. So I think that's so important. That's our roles as well in that STEM education, to make it more accessible, because once you break down a lot of the time scientific words, there is methodology behind, whilst they're big words, you can usually break them down.
Yeah, and as you say, it's about the practical applications of what you're doing as well. So instead of just being sort of, this is a method that we use, you say this is a method we use because it can do this further down the line. And I think that can get a bit lost as well sometimes, can't it?
Yeah.
We just had a really good question. Is it required to take maths or computer science at A levels to get into research?
So It does help having some form of analytics. I wouldn't say it's an absolute must, because I think even now different degree courses are going to end up adding it on as bolt-ons. So you'll go into biological sciences or whatever, and then you'll have options. I just wouldn't advise anyone shying away from it. Try and embrace it. Try and work out how, you actually can harness that possibility of keeping that part. We all have our favourite subjects and our favourite areas. I wouldn't say it's a must, but it certainly does help having that analytical side.
Great. This is another interesting question. Are there any aspects of your career that you dislike?
Good question.
It's a good question.
Sometimes, if you can imagine huge organisation like our own, and obviously I've just talked about the R&D side, the research and development side, there's a whole wealth and complexity. Sometimes the hardest, it becomes not necessarily what you do, but how. It's the how you work and collaborate. And really understanding a matrix organisation can be really tough to work and weave through, which is why I was sort of talking about also building the skill sets around the teamwork, the collaboration. The more you can show off you as an individual, how you go about things and how you go through difficult challenges or problems to solve, or different extracurricular activities. It's really important to sort of show off all of you. And equally, we don't always know how we're going to respond. So it's actually good just to get those experiences, because until you're in those difficult, challenging situations, whether you're doing your Duke of Edinburgh or you're volunteering at a care centre or whatever that might be, you don't know how you're going to react till you're in that setting. And then it's a learning experience. And as long as you learn, I think that's what that film was talking about. It's working together, learning, and making sure that you can't know it all. You always add on, I would say, is the most important.
Great. Well, way to turn a negative question into a positive. That was great. Thank you. That's about all we've got time for. We've had some really good questions. So I just wanted to say thank you again, Catherine. That was just brilliant and really inspiring. And as I say, a great start to our week. Just a couple of reminders. There's an evaluation form that'd be great if people could fill in. It's been popped in the chat, but we'll email it as well. We've recorded the session, so it will be available on our website once STEM Inspiration Week is over. So the last thing to do again is say thank you. Thanks to all who are coming, and thanks again to Catherine. And I hope you can drop into some other sessions as the week goes on. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.